Yep, it's 5 o'clock. So we'll call this policy meeting to order. Now is the time for any public opportunity to discuss, and seeing the multitudes of people, if we could just have you form a line, and we'll start. Are there any cards?
There are no speakers this evening.
No speakers, wow, okay. We'll go on then to our action items, consent agenda.
Make a motion, we adopt the action summary minutes of February 27th, 2014.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk.
Director Gould,
Aye.
Director Scheidegger,
Aye.
and Director Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, and now we move on to our action items. Number 1, and I believe we have our interim board clerk going to present that.
Yes. The Policy Committee commenced review of the board's policy manual at your February 27th meeting. At that meeting, the committee agreed to staff proposed changes that reflect current practice. Members of the committee also proposed changes which staff has incorporated in the document before you tonight. So I was going to just highlight those sections, and you have a clean version and a red line version. So the first one is section 6, page 12 of the clean version, and that's your right-hand side of page numbering. And in that one, what I did was remove the text that related to holding quarterly workshops.
Okay.
And then on section 17, which is page 15 of the clean version, I removed the text that required the board agendize any vote on any member's request to attend a conference or workshop, because it's listed in 2 sections there. It already says, you already have a budget for that, and it says that if you exceed your budget, then you need board approval. So that was,
Proposed to exceed the budget, you need to have
Board, yeah.
board approval before you expend the funds.
right, rather than, the way it was stated before, it was you had to bring every request to the board for
Correct.
approval.
And on that, if I could just hold you up there maybe, or let you finish.
No, that's it for me.
Okay, on that, the pagination? Anyways, the page numbers in the table of contents says that's on
Yeah,
the page before that.
I didn't update the table of contents yet because I knew that might change tonight, and so I was going to wait until we finished with that and then
There you go.
get you a real clean version.
Great. She is.
On section 19, which is page 16 of the clean version, I checked with our fire code division and updated this section to reflect current law. It's in sections where it said Uniform Fire Code, it now says International Fire Code, and then added the City of Rancho Cordova where applicable. The more substantial changes came under section 25 and 26, starting on page 18 of the clean version. And what I did here was I moved some language around and added language under 16 that further described where an item would fall on the agenda, such as what type of items would fall under consent, following your current policy that you do a presentation generally before you do an action, but describing what could go under consent, and adding some text about why you would hold a public hearing separate on your agenda. Do you have any questions about that section? Are you fine with it? Okay. And section 27, the language that was in your board policy was the first sentence, which talked about board members introducing special items not contained on the agenda that they needed to provide a copy before the meeting. But I didn't feel that section, if you were going to have that section in there, I didn't feel that it identified the fact that you can't really add an item to an agenda unless you meet a certain criteria and that you have a special process for doing that. So I added that language to here to be clear that you just don't add items to the agenda without going through that process or meeting that criteria.
And that refers back to the issue we had before about emergency agenda
Exactly.
items having to have.
That was taken out, and that extra language was taken about extra votes, it only requires 5 votes, but if you have an emergency meeting, you meet this standard, which is the standard of the Brown Act. Under Section 29, which is page 20, we talked about this. I just added language throughout here that established a regular meeting schedule for each committee. The Finance Committee does meet every month, but Policy and Executive, I've set those up for just being one regular meeting a month, and then you would add a special meeting as needed, rather than cancel meetings every month. And I also added that you have an alternate for both the Finance and Audit Committee and the Policy Committee, which has been your practice, but it wasn't included in your manual. Section 31 is actually a new section, so that's on page 22. As mentioned at the last meeting, I took your board's public communication policy 119.01 that talks a lot about public communication, both oral and written at meetings, and I incorporated, it wasn't in your manual before, so I incorporated that language here.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
On the second paragraph under section 31, it says comments from individuals will be limited to 3 minutes, and comments from organizations will be limited to 5 minutes. So I technically could have 8 minutes to talk to this board.
This is the way it's listed in your manual, and the intent is, I believe, if an individual represents themselves, it's 3 minutes. If they represent an organization, it's 5. If you think
Right.
it should be
Well,
worded
but
differently.
I understand that, but I could say, for the first 3 minutes of my presentation, I'm going to chat with you as an individual. For the following 5 minutes, I'm going to speak to you as an organization's representative or from an organizational
Sure.
standpoint. I think maybe what we're attempting to do is say, it needs to be clear that when you're presenting to the board, are you presenting as an individual? And if so, you're limited to 3 minutes. If you're presenting as an organization, we will extend that to a 5 minute, but the same person can't
Right.
communicate. Is that the
Okay.
intent?
That's the intent, is
Yes.
to limit them either as an individual to 3 minutes, and/or if they're representing an organization, they get 5. They don't get a combination thereof.
So I think we need to be clear in that
Clarify that.
language to say, and the same person can't do both,
Okay.
only because I think what we're trying to do is give everybody an opportunity to speak. And if everybody came up and said, I see how I can get 8 minutes by your policy, because I can say the first 3 and then the back 5, and I'm in, how are you gonna refute that? It gives us an opportunity to say, but you can't be the same person doing the same function.
Okay, as an individual or as an organization, okay.
Yeah, so I think that's just a piece of clarification.
Okay. I can add that
On the
language
next
in there.
sentence, if I may, that's 15 minutes in total for the subject, regardless of number of speakers,
Unless the last sentence applies.
unless the president wishes to extend it.
Correct, and that's in your current policy, so this wasn't changed, it was taking the word that you have in this policy and putting it in here, which you can change that policy if you so choose.
So example, we have a workshop coming up, could be hours.
Yeah.
In that case, because we want as much maximum public input. The 15 minutes really is designed for your standard meeting time, so that somebody doesn't come in here and filibuster it for.
Okay, thank you.
Then the only other issue is the appendices. Now, these are, again, the numbering will be changed in the final document, but I just wanted to draw your attention to Appendix A is your enduring goals, and it was agreed at the last meeting that you will be discussing those at your workshop next week. And then I believe, based on that, any proposed changes could be incorporated in this as this goes forward to the board.
Yes.
If that's what you'd like. Appendix B and C, one being the schedule of meetings and C being a waiver form, have been removed. You indicated that the schedule changes every year, so we didn't want to put it in there. I didn't see a need to have the actual form for the waiver. It refers to a waiver form, but I didn't see that the form needed to be an appendix. So the numbering of the appendix will change. Now, the new Appendix C is the latest version of the Finance and Audit Committee Charter was adopted in July 11th, 2013. That's inserted here, not reformatted, but Director Scheidegger asked that that go back to the Finance and Audit Committee, and it will go back at their next meeting for them to look at again. And again, if they propose any changes, we can bring that forward when this comes to with their changes at the next board meeting.
Thank you.
You know, and I'm wondering too, from a consistency standpoint, the Executive Committee Charter and the Finance and Audit or Committee Charter don't appear to be and look the same. So just from a consistency standpoint, we probably ought to have the charter of the exec team and the policy team, you know, made to look similar.
Yeah, reformatted and styled.
Right.
Okay, and I'll do that in the final edition as well. And those were the changes that I believe I received from last meeting or saw that were possibilities to be incorporated in this document. So I don't know if you have any other questions.
One other one I wanted to mention was, and I brought it up before, the pay. We did update what it was, but it could still lead to some confusion. Maybe it's just me, but it says per meeting. And I know on some boards, this would be considered a meeting, and then the subsequent meeting after this is another meeting. And, you know, as we're here talking about the Finance Committee and the Audit Committee and all these, it's been our practice that we don't take pay for these meetings because they're scheduled on the same day as a board meeting, and maybe we could clarify that.
Yeah, so it currently, it has read before, all I changed was the amount and the date when it was effective, so it has read before and continues to read, for each regular or special meeting attended for not more than 4 meetings in any calendar month.
I mean, it's pennies on the
So-
dollar, but I just don't want the public to be thinking that we
So you want
are
this to be
having every little,
clarified?
you know, the Audit Committee now is gonna meet before the Finance Committee, and so we're doubling up, tripling up our pay, where, again, I know it's pennies, but I think it's gotta be very clear that
So adding,
this board is taking every action to keep costs down, and we are not here trying to pad our pocketbooks.
So are you saying just to add the word
For
for each regular or special board meeting?
Yeah, I'm
Which
thinking-
clarifies it so that it's not some other
committee.
subcategory?
yeah,
I think that's reasonable.
okay. And the max is gonna be 4 a month anyway?
Yeah.
Even if you had, so that would be,
But that would at least
okay.
be more in line with our practice and how we're doing it, and clarify that to the public. Other than that,
Mr.
do you guys see
Chairman,
anything?
I would move, if it's appropriate, that the Policy Committee move the revised policies and procedures to the board for adoption.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Director Gould,
Aye.
and Director Pearson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to bring up while we're here?
Our next meeting is on the 24th?
It will be after our special, and so that would be because we're going to finalize our goals and objective type things.
I'm trying to get as many meetings in a month. If we
I'm
could
sure
get
you are,
15 in April, we will
That's why I
endeavor,
was asking, 'cause
we'll endeavor to do that.
I'd like to not have that
Yeah.
meeting.
I would be very much
We
in
have
favor of that.
we have a meeting on the
16.
3rd. We have canceled the 10th. Yeah, we have 2 meetings on the 3rd. We have canceled the 10th, and we will be announcing tonight a meeting on the 16th. So the pleasure of the board is to cancel the 24th I'm really, really frustrated that you would not want to meet here for at least 8 or 10 days in a row. But we can make that
Well,
happen.
we don't want to get too close to our limit in case we need to have more
Yeah,
meetings.
I agree.
So-
We will make sure that we cancel
I
that. We
don't
just
see
bring
any
it up to the
reason why
board
we
tonight.
would need to meet
I don't
if
think
we
we
make
don't.
this and we're moving, because the board at our retreat is going to finalize the wording in this, and that's the last part of this puzzle. So we can move this to the full board. We'll add that wording that we do at our
So
retreat, our
The next
workshop.
meeting date's TBA.
Yeah, to be
Yeah.
announced. I don't see anything pressing on the policy. I know
Okay.
these meetings are so well attended and important that maybe something will come up, but I don't see anything right now.
No, I don't think anything else is going to come up on policy for the next 30 days. I think that's safe to say.
Okay,
And if there is, you guys can always ask for it. We can always make sure the meeting happens. Okay?
we can always call a special, or we can add one. All right, having said that, we'll adjourn till our next meeting to be announced. Thank you.